The American Psychological Association article, New Insights on Eating Disorders, end quote, examined researchers' new emphasis on faulty neurobiology, a biological source, as a driving factor for incidence of both anorexia and bulimia, as an attempt to counter the current emphasis on social and cultural and environmental factors. As the article states, there is much misunderstanding of mental health disorders among the public, and this is especially abundant in the case of eating disorders. There's an emphasis on external factors such as cultural pressures, parental attitudes towards weight and diet, stressful or traumatic events that trigger disordered eating habits. And they point out, of course, anorexia's basis in extreme food restrictions and a seemingly irrational fear of gaining weight, with fewer than 1% of women developing anorexia, as opposed to bulimia, which is characterized by binge eating, which is also followed by purging or other compensatory behaviors. This is in direct opposition to binge eating disorders, where sufferers do not seek to avoid gaining weight, so much as try but often fail to control their eating habits. Now, per the article, cultural factors do matter, but less than recently identified biological causes. According to their research, maladaptive eating disorders can lead to serious health complications from both anorexia's muscle wasting and organ damage due to lack of sufficient nutrition, to the extreme opposite, with bulimia's common obesity and related heart disease, high blood pressure, and other obesity-related health issues such as diabetes. Now, their early other research has shown that the disorders share some biological similarities, such as being heritable, and according to the article, it's not uncommon for someone with one of the disorders to later develop the other, indicating a, quote, common vulnerability, end quote. Key and her colleagues' theory was that the reward system of the brain in these sufferers appeared to be faulty, leading to less satisfaction and oversensitivity to punishment. By examining the brains of women with anorexia, they found that the brain circuits involved in the reward system were less active during winning, but were much more active during losing, which appeared as a complication of dopamine activity being weaker in those individuals. As a result, eating signals anxiety in these individuals as opposed to a sense of reward or satiation. Now, Kay and the researchers believe they've identified several different regions of the brain that could be the cause of this incomplete reward system. This includes structural differences in the orbitofrontal cortex, which controls feelings of satiation. And they have found in the sufferers that there appears to be more activity in the dorsal striatum, which is linked to habitual behaviors in women with anorexia. Another theory indicates that the right insula of the brain, responsible for processing taste sensations, appears to be altered in anorexia patients, resulting in, quote, hypersensitivity to changing body sensations, end quote, which may affect eating behaviors as limiting food is used as a compensating factor for an overwhelmed sensory system. Now, these researchers' findings suggest that the treatment that emphasizes rewards may be less effective than those that emphasize negative consequences, but not punishment, rather than reward systems. They hope that further research will continue to examine these factors in regards to racial groups and men, both of whom were excluded from this research in the future as a greater emphasis of men increases, and to see the differences between women of different racial groups. Now, although this is very interesting, the article makes clear that past research has been inconsistent on the biological factors that may affect anorexia, bulimia, or other eating disorders. It remains to be seen if these brain differences result in increased likelihoods of developing these disorders due to these or other factors. Now, the article on the website from the National Institute of Mental Health provided an overview of eating disorders, including symptoms, risk factors, and treatments. Like the research article, they were clear to state that eating disorders are not a choice but a serious disease, which is a common misconception among the public. As appropriate, the overview included specific lists of symptoms of each disorder, as well as links in each section to areas of assistance for the public. The emphasis appeared to be on providing clear symptoms, risk factors, and resources for the public. The overview did include the idea that multiple factors, including both biological and social factors, were responsible for contributing to the development of eating disorders. This includes familial risk, and the brain activity differences do exist among those with eating disorders when compared to healthy women. The article from the National Institute of Mental Health also went on in great detail about the treatments and therapies that are available for those who suffer from eating disorders. This included individual and group therapies, all the way up to medications and psychotherapies. They helpfully suggested many different types of medications were available, but were careful not to mention the low rate of success among those who have turned to antidepressants or other medications. The overview closed with links in each section to both additional information and potential treatment areas, suicide prevention hotlines, as well as potential studies that could be joined to help develop more information for researchers. This is particularly important given the high death rate of anorexia sufferers, and the large amount of health complications or other eating disorders. Allowing for a biological source of these issues can help to reduce the stigma associated with these mental disorders, potentially seeking more people to seek out treatment, as well as improving treatment's objectives and outcomes for those patients. Better treatment of eating disorder sufferers will lead to reduction in relapse rates and better overall outcomes. Ultimately, researchers hope to reduce deaths and complications from these diseases, and more accurately identifying the sources of those disorders, contributing factors, and sufferers will lead to better treatments.